Cowboy accepted an Apache slave as payment, only to learn she was the chief's daughter. The sun was burning high in the sky over the small town of Dry Creek, a settlement built with rough wooden buildings, dusty streets, and the constant hum of life in the American Southwest. Heat shimmered over the plains, and the wind carried a faint scent of sagebrush and dust. Tom Harris, a tall, rugged cowboy with a weathered face and eyes that had seen more than his fair share of hardship, was leaning against the railing of the saloon porch, watching the day unfold. His cattle ranch was not far from the town, and he had come in to collect payment for a job he had completed weeks earlier. He was owed money by a trader named Sam Fletcher, a man whose reputation was as slippery as the creek during the summer rains. Sam had promised Tom that he would settle his debt in cash, but when Tom arrived, he found Fletcher wringing his hands nervously and avoiding direct eye contact. "Tom," Fletcher began, his voice shaky, I don't have the money right now. Times have been tough. But I have something else to offer if you'll take it." Tom raised an eyebrow. He had been through this kind of situation before. "I don't want your excuses, Sam. I want my payment. What's your offer?" Fletcher hesitated, then said in a low voice, I can offer you something else instead of money. A young Apache girl. She can work for you, help on your ranch." Tom's eyes narrowed. His heart sank and his mind raced. He had heard stories of people trading human lives as if they were livestock, but he had never thought he would be in such a position. He studied Fletcher carefully, noticing the desperation in the man's eyes. Tom was a practical man, and he had learned to make hard choices in life. Still, the idea of accepting a human being as payment made him uneasy. "I don't know if that's right," Tom said cautiously. "I can't just take her as if she's a thing to be bought or sold." Fletcher's voice grew urgent. "Tom, listen, she's not just anyone. You'll see, she's smart and strong. You can use her on the ranch. She won't cause trouble. This is the only way I can pay you." Tom was silent for a moment, weighing his options. He could refuse and risk angering Fletcher, who might vanish without ever paying the debt. Or he could accept not as a master or owner, but as someone who could ensure her safety. In the end, practicality won. He nodded slowly. "Fine," he said. "I'll take her. But I warn you, I don't want trouble. I'm responsible for her safety." Fletcher exhaled in relief and led Tom to the edge of town, where a young girl stood quietly under the shade of a tree. She was maybe 14 or 15, her dark hair tied back simply, her clothing plain but neat. Her eyes were striking, sharp, alert, and carrying a depth that suggested intelligence and pride. She did not look frightened, only calm and steady, as if she were used to careful observation of the world around her. "This is Ahioka," Fletcher said. "She'll go with you willingly, I promise." Tom approached her cautiously. "Ahioka," he said softly, "my name is Tom. We're going to the ranch now. Don't be afraid." The girl looked at him, her eyes studying him as though trying to understand whether he was a friend or a threat. After a moment, she inclined her head slightly and followed him without a word. Her silence was not fear, it was dignity. Tom could feel it. The ride to the ranch was long and quiet. Tom led his horse slowly through the sun-scorched plains, with Ahioka walking beside him at first, then gradually falling in step as they rode together. Tom found himself glancing at her occasionally, noting the way she handled herself with care and grace. She seemed to notice the plants along the path, the tracks of animals, the changing winds. Even in her quiet, she carried a sense of awareness that was unusual for someone her age. When they finally arrived at the ranch, Tom opened the gate and led them inside. The ranch was modest but well kept, with a few cattle grazing in the paddock and a small wooden cabin at its center. Tom had lived alone for years, his days filled with the hard labor of running the ranch and the occasional company of neighbors. Now the presence of Ahioka changed the air of the place, bringing a mix of curiosity and tension. Tom showed her to a small room at the back of the cabin. It was simple, with a bed, a wooden chest and a window that looked out onto the plains. "This will be your room," he said. "You'll have food, shelter, and safety here. That's all I ask for now. We'll figure out the rest later." Ahioka nodded, her eyes never leaving his face. She didn't speak, but there was a quiet understanding between them. Tom sensed that she was not a typical child. She was clever, observant, and aware of the dangers around her. He respected her for that. Over the next few days, Tom introduced Ahioka to life on the ranch. She helped with chores, learning quickly how to feed the animals, fetch water, and assist with the cattle. She was careful and precise, never causing problems, and she seemed to have a natural talent for understanding the land and the animals. Tom began to see that she was more than just someone to help on the ranch. She had skills and intelligence that far exceeded what he expected. The townsfolk began to notice her presence. Some whispered about the unusual arrangement, while others avoided the topic altogether. People were curious but wary. A young Apache girl living on a white man's ranch was bound to attract attention, and not all of it friendly. Tom didn't care much for gossip, but he kept an eye out for signs of trouble, aware that Ahioka's safety depended on him. At night when the work was done, Tom would sit by the fire outside the cabin. Ahioka often joined him, sitting quietly, watching the flames dance. Occasionally she would speak a few words, telling him small stories about life in her tribe, the plants she recognized, or the skills she had learned from her family. Tom listened, fascinated. The girl was more than capable. She was wise beyond her years. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Tom realized something important. He had accepted her reluctantly, thinking she was just payment, a tool to settle a debt. But now, seeing her strength, intelligence, and dignity, he could not help but feel a sense of respect, and perhaps even a sense of responsibility that went beyond the usual obligations of a rancher. He understood that the choice he had made was no longer just about business. Ahioka was a person with her own story, her own family, and her own rights. The thought made him uneasy, but it also made him determined. He would ensure she was treated with care, even if it meant facing challenges he could not yet see. In the days that followed, Tom began to teach her basic skills needed for survival on the plains. He showed her how to ride properly, how to identify animal tracks, and how to handle a rope. Ahioka absorbed every lesson quickly, often surprising Tom with her insight. She asked questions he had never considered, and sometimes she even corrected him politely when he made a small mistake. Tom started to realize that the girl was not only capable of surviving in this harsh land, but might one day be a leader herself. He did not know the full story of her past, but there was something in the way she carried herself that hinted at strength, wisdom, and courage. Meanwhile, the local environment continued to test both of them. Wild animals roamed the plains, the weather could turn harsh and unforgiving, and the townsfolk remained suspicious. Yet through it all, Ahioka remained composed, calm, and capable. Tom began to feel that their partnership, though unexpected, was valuable. They learned from each other, protected each other, and slowly formed a bond built on trust. One morning, a distant figure appeared on the horizon, a rider coming quickly toward the ranch. Tom felt a tension in the air, a sense of unease that he could not explain. As the rider drew closer, it became clear that this was someone connected to Ahioka. The realization made Tom's heart beat faster, though he did not yet know what it would mean. He could only hope that he had done right by her, and that whatever was coming would not bring harm. That was the start of a journey neither of them expected, a journey that would test courage, understanding, and trust in ways Tom could never have imagined. And it all began with a simple, difficult choice: to accept a young Apache girl as payment for a debt, never knowing that her life, and the lives of those around her, would soon change forever. The days on the ranch settled into a routine, yet each day brought something new. The sun rose over the plains, painting the sky with gold and pink, and Tom Harris would already be outside tending to the cattle or checking the fences. Ahioka had begun to move through the ranch as naturally as if she had been born there, though she remained quiet and watchful. She learned quickly, not just because she wanted to please Tom, but because survival on the plains required careful attention to every detail. She carried herself with grace and alertness, her eyes scanning the fields as she moved. Tom noticed small things about her he had not expected. She could sense changes in the wind before they came, noticing storms that were far off. She understood the behavior of the cattle, knowing which animals were sick, which were restless, and which might try to escape if not carefully guided. It was as if she had been born to this land. Tom began to realize that she was far more than a helper. She had intelligence and intuition that went beyond her years. One morning, as he was preparing to lead the cattle to a distant water source, Ahioka stopped him. "Tom," she said, pointing to a group of the cattle, "the black cow at the back is limping. If we move them now, it could worsen the injury." Tom squinted at the cow. She was right. Her keen observation saved the animal from further harm. Tom could not help but smile. "You have a good eye, Ahioka," he said. "Most people would have missed that." She simply nodded, as if expecting no praise. Her quiet confidence fascinated Tom. He could see that she learned not only from him but also from watching the land and the animals. She had a natural understanding that few people possessed. Life on the ranch was not always easy. The sun was harsh and the work demanded strength and patience. But Ahioka faced every challenge without complaint. She carried water, fed the animals, repaired fences, and even helped Tom with the horses. What surprised him most was her skill with the animals. She seemed to understand them in a way that Tom had never seen before. The horses responded to her touch and voice, and even the shyest cattle moved calmly around her. One evening, after a long day of work, Tom sat outside, cleaning his gear, while Ahioka tended to the smaller animals near the barn. The sun was setting, and the sky was filled with shades of orange and purple. Tom watched her quietly, noticing how she moved with purpose, yet without haste. There was a calmness about her that seemed to command respect from everything around her. "You're different," Tom said finally, breaking the silence. "I've worked with many people on the ranch, but none like you. You notice things others miss. You understand the animals and the land. Where did you learn these things?" Ahioka looked up at him, her dark eyes thoughtful. "My family, we learned from the land. We watched, we listened, and we practiced. It is not only work, it is understanding." Tom nodded slowly. He could sense that there was more to her story than she was willing to share. He did not press her. Respecting her silence seemed more important than asking questions she might not be ready to answer. As the days passed, their relationship deepened, though it remained built on cautious trust. Tom taught Ahioka the practical skills she would need to survive in this environment. How to ride long distances, how to track animals, how to handle a rope when rounding up cattle, and how to mend simple tools and fences. Ahioka absorbed every lesson quickly, often surprising Tom with the questions she asked and the solutions she suggested. One morning, while Tom was fixing a fence near the edge of the property, Ahioka came to him with a bundle of plants she had gathered. "These herbs," she said, "can help with wounds and fever. I have seen my mother use them." Tom examined the plants carefully. He had some knowledge of natural remedies, but Ahioka's choices were precise and effective. He realized that she could be very helpful in ways beyond what he had imagined. "You know a lot," he said. "I didn't expect that." Ahioka only smiled faintly. "We learn what is needed," she said. Their days were long and the work was sometimes grueling, but Ahioka seemed to thrive. She moved with purpose, her quiet strength making even the hardest tasks seem manageable. Tom began to rely on her more, not just as help on the ranch, but as someone whose judgment he could trust. Despite her calm demeanor, Ahioka was aware of the world around her. She noticed the occasional strangers passing through town, the whispers of the local townsfolk, and the movements of traders along the main road. She remained vigilant, knowing that her past and her identity might bring danger if discovered. One afternoon, while Tom was leading a small group of cattle to a distant grazing area, Ahioka paused, her head turning toward the horizon. "Tom," she said quietly, "there are tracks, not from cattle, from horses. They are moving fast." Tom stopped and studied the tracks. They were indeed fresh and heading in their direction. He realized immediately that they could be scouts, traders, or even bandits. He adjusted their route, keeping them hidden among the hills. "Good eyes," he said. "You notice everything." Ahioka only nodded. Her eyes held a mix of pride and caution. She understood the dangers of the land, and she was careful not to underestimate anyone. At night, when the work was done and the stars spread across the sky, Ahioka would often sit by the fire with Tom. They shared quiet moments, talking about the land, the animals, and small stories from her life before coming to the ranch. She spoke sparingly but thoughtfully, revealing bits of her culture and family teachings without ever exposing too much. Tom began to see her not just as a helper but as a person with depth, intelligence, and dignity. He respected her and, in a way, admired her courage. She had faced hardships he could hardly imagine, yet she remained calm and strong. The townsfolk continued to talk. Some were curious, some suspicious, and some outright disapproving. A young Apache girl living on a white man's ranch was unusual, and people did not always understand. But Tom paid little attention to gossip, focusing instead on her well-being and the work that needed to be done. Over time, Ahioka began to earn the trust of the animals, the land, and even Tom's neighbors. Her skills were undeniable. She could ride horses faster than most young men in town, track animals with precision, and treat minor injuries and illnesses with her knowledge of herbs and remedies. Tom found himself increasingly relying on her, though he still felt responsible for her safety. One afternoon, a small incident occurred that would leave a lasting impression on Tom. A calf had wandered away from the herd, and it had fallen into a shallow ravine. Tom was ready to climb down and rescue it, but Ahioka acted first. She assessed the situation quickly, fashioned a makeshift rope harness, and guided the calf safely out of the ravine. Tom was amazed. "You saved that calf without hesitation," he said. "I would have struggled for hours. You're clever." Ahioka looked at him calmly. "You must act quickly. Hesitation can cause harm." Tom realized that her skills were not just practical, they came from instinct and understanding. She thought ahead, planned, and acted with precision. It was clear she had been trained or had learned through experience, though he did not know the full story. Despite the hard work, there were moments of lightness. Ahioka had a quiet sense of humor and a gentle way of teasing Tom. Sometimes she would mimic the way he spoke to the cattle or imitate the stubbornness of the horses. Tom would laugh, and the moments brought warmth to the long, dusty days. Through it all, the bond between them grew. It was not friendship in the usual sense, nor was it dependence. It was a relationship built on respect, trust, and the unspoken understanding that they were both survivors in a harsh land. Tom came to realize that he was learning from her just as much as she was learning from him. But there was always an undercurrent of tension. Ahioka was not just a helper. She was someone whose past and identity could bring danger if discovered. Tom understood that her life might not be as simple as it appeared, and he felt a growing sense of responsibility to protect her from whatever forces might come looking. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills and painted the sky with fiery colors, Ahioka spoke quietly. "Tom, one day people may come looking for me," she said. Tom looked at her, his face serious. "If they do, we'll handle it together. I won't let anyone harm you." Ahioka nodded. There was trust in her eyes, but also a quiet resolve. She understood the risks and had faced dangers before, yet she chose to remain calm. That night, As the stars twinkled above, Tom sat by the fire reflecting on the girl he had accepted as payment weeks ago. What had seemed like a simple transaction had turned into something far more complicated. Ahioka was no ordinary child. She was wise, strong, and capable of remarkable insight. Tom realized that accepting her was no longer about money or debt. It was about honor, responsibility, and a deeper understanding of courage and humanity. And so, life on the ranch continued, each day bringing new lessons, new challenges, and a growing bond between the cowboy and the girl who was no ordinary child. Tom could not yet see the full story of Ahioka's past or the surprises that awaited them both, but he knew that the days ahead would test their trust, skill, and courage in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The morning sun burned over the plains with a harsh brilliance that made the dew sparkle on the grass. Tom had already been up for hours, checking the fences and feeding the cattle. Ahioka moved silently among the animals, her eyes sharp and alert as always. It was a quiet day, or so it seemed. From a distance, Tom noticed a group of riders approaching the ranch. At first, he thought they were ordinary travelers, but as they drew closer, he realized something was different. The riders moved with purpose, their horses strong and fast, and they carried an air of authority that made Tom uneasy. Ahioka noticed them too. Her eyes narrowed and she moved closer to Tom. "They are not ordinary travelers," she said softly. "They are scouts from my people." Tom froze. "Your people?" he asked, his voice tense. "You mean the Apache?" Ahioka nodded, her face calm but serious. "Yes, they are looking for me." Tom felt a knot of worry tighten in his stomach. He had known that her past might bring danger, but he had hoped it would not come so soon. He quickly moved to the barn and secured the cattle, knowing that whatever happened, they needed to keep the animals safe. The riders approached the ranch, slowing only when they saw the gates. The leader, a tall man with a strong, serious face, pulled his horse to a stop and looked directly at Tom. His eyes were sharp and commanding. "Are you Tom Harris?" he called out. Tom nodded cautiously. "Yes." "Who are you?" The man's expression did not change. "I am Chief Nanton. I am searching for Ahioka, my daughter. She is here. I need to speak with her." Tom felt a jolt of shock. Chief Nanton. He had heard the name before, whispered in town as a powerful leader of a nearby Apache group. He realized immediately that Ahioka was not just a child taken in a raid or a simple hostage. She was the daughter of the chief himself. Ahioka's eyes met Tom's, calm but resolute. She did not speak immediately. Tom could see the pride and dignity in her stance. Even in this tense moment, she carried herself like a person of importance. Tom knew he had to act carefully. "She's here, yes," he said. "She is safe. But I need to know that she will be treated with care. She has been under my protection." Chief Nanton studied him for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he dismounted his horse and approached. Ahioka stayed where she was, her posture steady and unyielding. "You have cared for her?" Chief Nanton asked, his voice deep and commanding. Tom nodded. "Yes, she has worked on the ranch, helped with the animals, and lived here with respect and safety. I have treated her as a person, not a thing. That is all I can promise." Chief Nanton's eyes softened slightly, though his gaze remained firm. "Good, she is my daughter. I must know that she is unharmed. Who are you to take her without permission?" Tom swallowed. "I did not take her. She was offered as payment for a debt I was owed. I accepted only to keep her safe. I had no intention of harming her or claiming her as property." The chief looked at Tom carefully, weighing his words. Ahioka stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "Father," she said, "I have lived here for some time. He has treated me with respect. He has not harmed me. I am safe." Tom was surprised by her composure. She spoke with confidence, using her words wisely, showing that she was not just a child but someone who understood diplomacy and leadership. Chief Nanton studied his daughter, then looked at Tom again. "You have protected her," he said finally. "That is good, But you must understand she is not ordinary. She is the daughter of the chief. She cannot be treated as a servant or a helper. She is my child." "Do you understand?" Tom nodded quickly. "Yes, sir, I understand." Ahioka remained quiet, watching the exchange. There was a tension in the air, a mix of relief, caution, and respect. Tom realized that the girl he had thought of as a helper, or even as payment, was someone of great importance. He felt a mix of awe and worry, understanding now the true gravity of the situation. Chief Nanton gestured for Ahioka to come forward. "Come, daughter. Tell me everything. Where have you been? What have you learned? Who has protected you?" Ahioka spoke carefully, describing her days on the ranch, her work with Tom, and the lessons she had learned. She spoke honestly but with dignity, showing that she had grown, learned, and adapted while maintaining her identity and pride. Chief Nanton listened silently, nodding occasionally. Then he turned to Tom. "You have treated my daughter well," he said. "For that I am grateful. You have shown honor in a difficult situation. I will not forget it." Tom felt a mixture of relief and pride. He had feared the chief's anger, but now he realized that his actions had earned respect. "Thank you, sir," he said. "I only wanted to do what was right. I never meant to cause harm." Ahioka looked at Tom, her eyes holding gratitude and respect. "You have been fair," she said softly. "I am thankful for your care." The chief studied them both for a moment, then spoke again. "You have shown courage and honesty. I will take Ahioka home, but I do not see you as an enemy. You have acted with integrity." Tom nodded, feeling the weight of the words. He realized how close he had come to making a serious mistake, and how important it was to act with honor in situations he did not fully understand. As the sun climbed higher, Chief Nanton's group prepared to leave. Ahioka mounted her horse, standing tall and proud. Tom helped her with her saddle, and she looked at him one last time. There was an unspoken understanding between them, trust, respect, and a bond forged through hardship and care. "Take care of yourself, Tom," she said. "You too, Ahioka," he replied. "Be safe." The chief nodded at Tom and then turned to leave with his daughter. Tom watched as they rode away, a mix of relief, awe, and reflection filling him. He had learned something profound in the past weeks. Courage, honor, and respect were more important than money, fear, or simple survival. As the dust settled over the plains, Tom returned to the ranch, feeling a sense of quiet pride. He had done the right thing, and in the process, he had met someone remarkable, someone who had changed his understanding of strength, wisdom, and resilience. The days after their departure were quiet. Tom returned to his work, but he often found himself thinking of Ahioka, of her courage, her intelligence, and her dignity. He knew that life had many challenges ahead, but he felt stronger, wiser, and more aware of the importance of integrity. The story of Ahioka, the girl who had been offered as payment but turned out to be a chief's daughter, spread slowly through the town. People spoke of Tom's courage in protecting her, and of Ahioka's intelligence and bravery. Though the events were unusual, they left a lasting impression on those who heard them. Tom often reflected on the lessons he had learned. He realized that appearances could be deceiving, that people were not to be judged solely by circumstance, and that honor and respect were qualities that could bridge even the widest gaps between different worlds. Though Ahioka had returned to her people, the bond they had formed remained. Tom knew that their paths might cross again, that the trust and understanding they had built would endure. And he knew that he had been part of something extraordinary, a story of courage, respect, and the unexpected ways that people could impact each other's lives. Life on the ranch continued, but Tom would never forget the girl who had changed his understanding of what it meant to act with integrity, to protect those in need, and to respect the strength and wisdom of others, no matter their age or background. And somewhere out there, riding beside her father, Ahioka carried the lessons she had learned from Tom, the knowledge of a world beyond her tribe, and the strength and courage that would one day make her a remarkable leader. The plains were quiet, but the story of a cowboy and an Apache girl, one given as payment but revealed as a chief's daughter, would echo in memory and conversation for years to come. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of sage and wild grass across the plains. Tom Harris had been up before sunrise, tending to the cattle and repairing a fence that had been damaged in the previous night's windstorm. Though the ranch seemed quiet, the memory of Ahioka's departure with her father weighed on him. He had thought about her constantly since that day, reflecting on what he had learned from her and what her presence had brought to his life. As he worked, he noticed a small group approaching from the distance. His heart skipped a beat. It was Chief Nanton and Ahioka, returning to the ranch for one last meeting. Tom's hands tightened around the fence post he was fixing. He knew this visit would decide the final resolution of their unusual situation. When they arrived, Ahioka dismounted gracefully, her eyes bright and steady. She looked stronger than ever, her posture proud yet approachable. Chief Nanton followed closely, his expression serious but calm, radiating authority and wisdom. Tom approached them, his own expression respectful. "Chief Nanton," he said, "Ahioka, welcome back. It is good to see you both." The chief nodded. "Thank you for agreeing to meet us here. I wish to speak in peace and reach understanding." Ahioka stood quietly beside her father, her eyes meeting Tom's. There was warmth in her gaze, a connection built from shared experiences and mutual respect. Tom felt a sense of relief. He had hoped that their relationship would end with trust rather than conflict, and now it seemed possible. Chief Nanton began to speak, his voice calm but firm. "Tom Harris, I have learned of how you have treated my daughter. She has told me of your care, your honesty, and your respect. It is not common to see such integrity in these times. For that, I am grateful." Tom nodded humbly. "I only did what I felt was right. I wanted her to be safe and respected. That was all I hoped to accomplish." Ahioka's voice broke the silence. "Tom has been fair and kind. He taught me things I did not know before. He treated me as a person, not as property. I am thankful for his care." Chief Nanton's eyes softened as he looked at his daughter. "You speak wisely, Ahioka. You have learned much in a short time. Your experiences have strengthened you, and you have remained true to yourself. That is admirable." Tom listened, impressed by the wisdom and dignity in Ahioka's words. He realized again that she was no ordinary girl. She carried herself with the strength and intelligence of someone far beyond her years. The chief turned his attention back to Tom. "I wish to ensure that no harm comes to either of you in the future. We will take Ahioka home where she belongs, but I also wish for mutual respect between our people. You have shown that understanding is possible, even across different worlds." Tom felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "I will respect your wishes, Chief Nanton. I never wanted conflict. I only wished to do right by her." Ahioka stepped forward, her eyes meeting her father's. "Father, I have learned much here. The world is larger than I imagined. I am stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the future." "I am grateful for Tom's guidance and care." Chief Nanton nodded. "You have shown great maturity, Ahioka. You are ready to return, but remember the lessons you have learned. And Tom, know that your actions will be remembered. Respect is rare, and you have earned it." The discussion turned to practical matters. Chief Nanton wanted assurances that Ahioka would leave the ranch safely, and that Tom would continue to respect her privacy and autonomy until their departure. Tom agreed, offering to help prepare her horse and belongings, ensuring she had everything needed for the journey back to her people. Ahioka moved through the ranch with a quiet dignity, gathering the few personal items she had acquired. She paused for a moment by the barn, running her hand along the worn wood where she had spent many hours learning, working, and observing. She looked at Tom, who was adjusting her saddle, and smiled faintly. "You have taught me much," she said softly. Not only how to care for the land and the animals, but also patience, respect, and courage. I will carry these lessons with me. Tom smiled in return. And I have learned from you. You have reminded me that strength and wisdom can be found in unexpected places, and that trust and honor are more important than any debt or payment. Chief Nanton watched this exchange silently, his eyes thoughtful. Then he spoke, his tone formal yet approving. It is rare to see such mutual respect between people from different worlds. This is a moment to remember. Go in peace, Ahioka, and know that your journey continues with honor. Ahioka mounted her horse gracefully, her posture confident and steady. She looked back at Tom one last time, her eyes full of gratitude and understanding. Tom nodded, feeling a deep sense of respect and fondness for the young girl who had changed his perspective so profoundly. The chief and his daughter rode together, leaving the ranch in a cloud of dust. Tom watched until they disappeared over the horizon, the wind carrying the faint sound of the horses' hooves. The plains returned to silence, but the memory of the past weeks remained vivid in his mind. Tom returned to the cabin and sat on the porch, reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about the moment he had accepted Ahioka as payment, uncertain and uneasy, and how that choice had led to a series of events that taught him more than he could have imagined. He realized that life often presented challenges that tested character, and that integrity and respect could create bonds stronger than any obligation. Over the following days, life on the ranch returned to its normal rhythm, but Tom often found himself thinking about Ahioka. He remembered the way she had handled the horses, the way she had observed the land, and the quiet wisdom she had displayed. He knew that she would go on to do great things, carrying the lessons she had learned on the ranch alongside the traditions of her people. Tom also reflected on his own growth. He had learned that actions, even those taken with uncertainty, could have far-reaching consequences. He had learned the importance of seeing people as individuals, of respecting their dignity and intelligence, and of acting with honor even when the choices were difficult. Word of the encounter spread slowly through the nearby towns. People spoke of Tom Harris and the young Apache girl, of the unusual circumstances, and of the respect and integrity displayed by both. The story became a lesson for others, a reminder that courage, wisdom, and mutual respect could bridge divides and create understanding, even in the harshest of environments. As the weeks passed, Tom continued his work on the ranch, but he often looked toward the horizon, imagining Ahioka riding beside her father, strong and confident. He knew that their paths might cross again, that the trust and understanding they had built would endure, and that the lessons they had shared would remain with them both. The plains stretched endlessly, a symbol of the challenges and opportunities that life offered. Tom understood that every choice carried weight, and that acting with care, respect, and honesty could shape outcomes in ways that were not always immediately visible. He felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that he had done right by Ahioka, and that he had witnessed the growth of someone extraordinary. In time, Tom returned to the routine of ranch life fully, but the memory of Ahioka remained vivid. He remembered her courage, her intelligence, and her dignity, and he often found himself sharing stories of their experiences with travelers and neighbors, not to boast, but to teach lessons about respect, honor, and the importance of understanding others. He also remembered the moment when Chief Nanton had acknowledged his integrity. It was a validation not only of his actions, but of his character, a reminder that even in a world full of hardship and uncertainty, doing the right thing could bring recognition, respect, and peace. Though Ahioka had returned to her people, her presence continued to influence Tom's life. He approached every decision with greater thought, every interaction with greater respect, and every challenge with a renewed sense of courage. The girl who had been offered as payment had transformed his understanding of humanity, teaching him lessons that no amount of money or labor could provide. And somewhere across the plains, riding beside her father, Ahioka carried her own lessons. She had learned the ways of the ranch, the wisdom of observation, and the value of mutual respect. She had faced challenges with courage, grown stronger in body and mind, and preserved her dignity even in unfamiliar circumstances. Her journey was far from over, but she moved forward with confidence, guided by the experiences she had shared with Tom Harris. The sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains. Tom sat on the porch of his cabin, watching the colors fade and the stars begin to appear. He felt a quiet peace, knowing that he had done what was right, and that a bond of trust and respect had been forged, one that would last in memory, shaping both his life and hers. The story of Tom and Ahioka, of a cowboy who accepted a young Apache girl as payment only to discover she was the chief's daughter, became a tale of honor, courage, and understanding. It reminded all who heard it that true strength was found not in possession or wealth, but in respect, wisdom, and the ability to act with integrity. Though the plains were vast and often unforgiving, the memory of this extraordinary encounter endured. It was a story of connection between worlds, a lesson in trust, and a testament to the extraordinary impact that one person could have on another.